Fraternal twins Reynold and Ren are the new kids in town. On Halloween, while out trick-or-treating, the twins encounter monsters known as Grubbins, which are collecting candy for nefarious purposes. Being dressed up as a candy corn, Ren is mistaken for candy and kidnapped. Reynold must then rescue his sister, get a big stash of candy, and get home before bedtime. Costume Quest is an extremely casual RPG from Double Fine Productions. Your main tasks are trick-or-treating to the various houses around for candy, discovering new materials to make new costumes, doing quests to make progress, and taking out any grubbins that you come across. Combat is about as basic and bare bones as you can get. You have extremely limited options. All you can do for your first few turns is fight or run away. After a few turns, your special meter will build up and you'll be able to perform your costume's unique move. These can be anything from area of effect damage to healing or stunning your opponents. One of the problems is that there is a lot of overlap between costumes. A lot of the abilities get recycled, which makes the costumes all feel less interesting and unique. All battles are just spamming your basic attacks until you get your meter filled, then using your costume's special ability and repeating until it's over. In an attempt to be more engaging, most of your basic attacks and abilities have a timed hit system. Most of these are just pressing a button prompt at the right time. They're easy enough to complete, but being forced to engage in them in a game that is so casual does get irritating. You have some light customization. On top of choosing what costumes to bring into battle, you can also get a bonus by equipping stickers. The stickers are pretty minor, like giving additional splash damage to your attacks. You can only equip one of them at a time, which doesn't provide enough customization to really scratch that itch. Out of combat, your costumes have some environmental uses. These are pretty rare overall, and only mandatory costumes get used. Progressing is gated between trick-or-treating and doing side quests for certain characters. These side quests are just as basic as they can be. Collect the items that people are looking for, and then they'll stand aside and let you pass. Costume Quest is aesthetically pleasing. The graphics are simple and low poly. Calling it cute or adorable would be pretty accurate. There's a fun juxtaposition with the characters when in and out of battle. A crappy cardboard box robot costume becomes a sweet mech when you engage in combat. These animations play every time you enter a battle. It's fun initially, but after the first few times, you just skip them and get on with it. The music and sound effects are appropriate, but nothing really stands out as remarkable, and most of the soundtrack is pretty forgettable. There's no voice acting, instead opting for pure text. The story is pretty light. It's an excuse to go on an adventure. There is a lot of humor, and if you're a fan of Double Fine's other games, you'll probably like what's here as well. The majority of the jokes aren't laugh-out-loud funny, but you'll get a chuckle every now and then. The story and humor will be the main draw of Costume Quest to most people. Costume Quest is an extremely easy game that no one should have any real trouble getting through. There are only a few potential hang-ups. Before you get your third party member, a few battles can be difficult and seemingly impossible to get through. This is an extremely brief window of time. It's not even really an issue because if you lose a battle, you're simply ejected out of it and given another opportunity to try again or to avoid the fight entirely. You will need at least one dedicated healer for the various boss encounters with recommendations for 2 towards the end. Thankfully, the healing costumes are actually no weaker than any of the standard costumes in a fight. Finally, there are a few segments where you have to do something somewhat unintuitive to proceed. It usually involves use of a costume that's not immediately obvious. There are only a few mandatory costumes to cycle through, so it shouldn't take too long to figure out the solution. Costume Quest is a short game. A full playthrough completing all quests and gathering all costumes was completed in 3 hours, 47 minutes, and 31 seconds. While Costume Quest is short, it does have some issues with pacing. It suffers from being extremely monotonous. The battles are all brain dead simple, and when you have realistically no chance of losing outside of a few battles, they mostly feel like filler. Choices in combat are virtually non-existent, leading to every battle playing out the same. The concept starts off being fun and enjoyable, but after an hour or two, it kind of starts to wear itself thin. Trick-or-treating is a fun concept in the beginning, but being forced to complete all the houses in all the areas feels too much like work. Some houses are somewhat hidden, which makes finding them annoying when you just want to move on to the next bit. There's no map, which means you need to be really efficient your first time around trick-or-treating or be forced to backtrack looking for houses that still have a light on. There are some hidden costumes and collectibles. While it is enjoyable to do the extra quests to get new costumes, the vast majority of them are borderline useless. The initial 3 costumes you get are sufficient to get through the game. The other hidden costumes are either fundamentally the same as ones you already have, or are completely underpowered within the context of Costume Quest. At recommended playing, games are either ascended to the pantheon of games worthy of your time with a recommendation, or are forced to wallow in the miserable muck of mediocrity with a dismissal. Costume Quest is an extremely simple RPG and will be a decent introduction to the genre for players who have never played one before. Veteran players will likely find it far too simple and monotonous to really enjoy. The main draws of Costume Quest is the lighthearted adventure and humor story. If you're a fan of Double Fine's other works, you'll know what you're getting into here. If you're looking for something short and sweet that's extremely casual for Halloween season, Costume Quest will probably fit the bill. If you're looking for something a little more robust, you'll definitely want to skip Costume Quest. But Costume Quest's cute aesthetic, fun story, and short length do make it a fairly memorable game with a low commitment cost. Costume Quest gets recommended playing's most prestigious verdict of recommended.